Hey guys, so I know it's been forever. um, Obviously I'm not pregnant anymore. Um, so I think the last time I updated was that I found out that my baby was breech. Um, I'm not sure if I had gotten to the point that I found out that she wasn't just breech but oblique and posterior. So she was diagonal and facing um, outwards instead of backwards. So pretty much if she was stuck that way, there was absolutely no possible way that she could come out. Yeah, there just was no possible way. So I started going to the chiropractor, and I usually went, I think, a couple times a week. Did stuff from spinningbabies.com, and I also saw an acupuncturist. And the 3 weeks ago today, I went to the chiropractor, and the day after that, I had my C-section scheduled. So when I went into the chiropractor, I was hoping with all my might that it would be the time that it would actually work. And at that point, I was 40 weeks and 2 days. And she also had me do some of the Spinning Babies stuff at the office. So while I was there and I was upside down, I was had about 3 contractions within the 10 minutes, but I was in denial. I was like, whatever, it's probably just strong Braxton Hicks. Because it couldn't be, because my baby had to turn before I went into labor. And she had to turn soon because the next day my C-section was scheduled. After I went to the chiropractor, I had to drive home and pick up my husband and daughter, and we had to go to the hospital to get the blood work done, so they knew what blood type I was in case something went wrong in the C-section and I needed blood, that sort of stuff. So we went and did that. All the while I had been having some contractions with back pain and such, but I was like, no, it can't be it. After we left the hospital, we're gonna go have lunch. So we decided we were gonna have lunch, and we leave the parking lot, and my contractions just got horrible, and close together. They were, I don't want to say extremely painful because they weren't extremely painful, but they were painful, and I had to like stop and breathe, trying to focus, that sort of thing. And it kept happening, and my husband's like, should we not go to lunch? And I was like, basically my answer was, I don't know. And it kept happening, so he's made the decision. He's like, yeah, we're just gonna get fast food and go home. On our way to doing that, I kept having them, so I was like, well, I probably shouldn't eat just in case I have to have a C-section, because you're not allowed to eat beforehand. So I was like, yeah. So we end up picking me up something to eat, so I could eat it after my midwife came to check me. If found out this was nothing, or if my baby had turned and I could eat, and we'll go on with the labor. So we get home, my midwife comes a short while later. She lives 40 minutes away, so, but she got there in a pretty timely manner. She had to move some of the appointments that she had already set up to come see me. So she came and she felt, and the baby was still in the same position. So, and we had my husband timed the contractions while we were talking, and so she's like, "Yeah, you need to get to the hospital as soon as possible." So I finished throwing things together. I finished my birth plan while in pain, having contractions, because I didn't have any of that ready, because I was in denial and figuring that C-section was not going to happen. My baby was going to turn, and I was going to have my home water birth. So now, in the midst of having all of this going on, I have to come to the factor that, yeah, I am having a C-section, and I just need to deal with it and get our stuff packed as much as we can. Pack stuff for my daughter to go to her grandma's, and stuff for us, obviously, and to make sure I got my birth plan so that they would follow it. So yeah, so we get to the hospital, and it was a painful drive. Very painful drive, especially hitting bumps and stuff. We get there, and they end up checking me, and I was 4 centimeters and 80% effaced. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna have to do the C-section, and luckily I hadn't had lunch, so they didn't need to like stop my labor and do it later that night, because you can't eat for 6 hours beforehand. So anyways, they have me hooked up to the monitors, timing the contractions and all that good stuff, and they started getting extremely painful. Okay, I figured that I'd probably be quiet in labor. Yeah, not the case. And I didn't even get to go fully into labor to the end, so who knows what that would have been like. But it's also painful because I had to stay in bed because I'm hooked up to all these wires and stuff. So I couldn't move around, which usually helped while I was at home. Standing or walking would help. But no, I was stuck in bed and it was painful. And they started getting extremely close. They're about 1.5 to 2 minutes apart, and by the time they got me back to the operating room, they were about 1 minute apart or less. I mean, they were right on top of each other, so they weren't sure how they were going to get the spinal in me to get me numbed up, ready for the surgery. He wanted to get me up sitting, because you get more likely to get equal levels of medication through your body for both sides. But he said if I couldn't get up, then they could flip me on my side and do it. And I was like, well, we'll try to get me to sit up. So as soon as one stopped, I had them help me get up, and then we had to wait for a contraction to kind of settle down, and then they numb it, which is the most painful part ever, is when they numb. I literally screamed out in pain from that. As horrible pain, being numbed before they stick the not epidural, the spinal. And I really hope I never have to do that again. I'd rather give birth. Obviously, I've never given birth vaginally, but I would definitely rather fully give birth than consent to getting the spinal or epidural in the case of actually getting to labor. So yeah, they got that all in. I forgot to say, before that, the on-call OB actually felt a septum on my uterus. So that kind of helped relieve some of the bad feelings about having to have a C-section, because absolutely nothing I did was going to turn the baby. Because there was no possible way for her to turn, because there's a wall built into my uterus, so she could not flip at all. There's no possible way to get her to flip. And so when they did the surgery, they opened me up and they found out that she had already pooped and inhaled it, so we didn't get to do the delayed cord clamping, which afterwards, since I wasn't prepared fully, I didn't get to say, no, don't clamp it, even if that is, and just do the respiratory stuff right there. So anyways, that's a regret, but she didn't get to have her delayed cord clamping that he agreed to because she had swallowed the meconium. And another thing that I found out 2 days after discharge when they came and checked on us, was that apparently my uterus is extremely small, which my midwife and the chiropractor had mentioned how it's very tight and small. But I just figured, whatever. But anyways, apparently it is really small, and she was jam-packed in there because the OB actually went dead silent, and the nurses got really frantic because he doesn't normally go silent. He's usually explaining what he's doing and as he's trying to get the baby out, but he's like pulling every which way on my stomach. It was like an earthquake was going on the table, and I found out later why. It's because he had a really hard time getting her out because she was just so wedged into me because I was so small. My uterus was so small. But anyways, she was born at 4:21 p.m. on March 7th. And she was 40 weeks and 2 days. She came a day before her scheduled C-section. She wanted to come on her own timing, just fine. She's just like her mommy. And it's she's girl, obviously, as you've heard me talking about her and she and all that. So yeah, and Daddy got to announce the gender for me once she was born. He had a little trouble. It was funny because he couldn't tell. At first, you couldn't tell if he was looking at the ball sack or not, but it was fun. So yeah, he got to announce that we had a little girl. She was 7 pounds 7 ounces and 20 inches long. They didn't tell me the APGAR score. They were probably too busy trying to suck the meconium out of her mouth and nose and all that. But she never left me. The only time she left me was just as they were about ready to wheel me out to the recovery room. So they had Dad and her walk out to the recovery room to meet me just so they wouldn't be in the way of the table. Once I got to the recovery room, we got to start breastfeeding right away. So in the recovery room, she got to be brought to me. She was given to Dad right after they gave her some air and got her to cry. Yeah, so that went really well. I didn't have to have her taken away from me like my worst fear was. Because C-sections, they normally take your baby away, but they didn't. So my birth plan, and they all agreed. So, the only bad thing about, since she had such a stressful delivery, they had to do blood sugar tests every 4 hours before she ate. Excuse me. Um, so that was horrible to watch. She had to get her foot pricked every 4 hours. That was awful. That lasted for 24 hours after birth, or 14. 14. I don't remember. Yeah, but the hospital was great. Nothing like I feared. Nobody tried to force the vaccines on me. Nobody tried to force me to do anything. They all just went with what I wanted. They didn't question any of it at all. They just went right with everything, which was awesome. For discharge, she weighed 6 pounds, 14 ounces. And then by 2 days later, when the nurse came to my house to check on me and the baby, she weighed 7 pounds, 3 ounces, I believe. So she was up already really well. She eats fantastically. We do get some problems with her flailing her head around my breast when she tries to latch, and she just gets frustrated and mad. We haven't quite figured out why she does that. But otherwise, she's a very good baby. Sister is adjusting slowly. She's nice to her. She just acts out a lot, getting into trouble as much as possible, and yeah. It's just not always fun. But, yeah. So she's 3 weeks old today. So sorry this is so late. Just been busy, and first I was trying to recover from a C-section, which was awful. Completely awful. I never want to do this again. I hate C-sections. I despise the idea of it beforehand, and then having to go through it. I definitely hate them. And I definitely hope I never ever have to do it again. But I do have to have surgery again sometime soon, sometime this year, to get the septum removed. They can't do it during surgery, I guess, because the size difference. I don't know. It would have been nice if they would, because then I wouldn't have to worry about it and not fear getting pregnant before it's removed and all that stuff. But the septum also probably explains my miscarriages and why it's taken so long to get pregnant each time. So that's definitely a relief to know that there is a reason for all of it, and it was something that was out of my control. And it's fixable, which is good to know. I would have never found it out if it wasn't for her. All because this little one was brought into my life. We found out that I had a septum, and that it's something that could interfere with pregnancies and all that. Because, yeah, if an egg tries to implant itself on it, it's not going to happen. Yada yada. If one does near it, probably cuts off the circulation or the blood, so then kills off the baby. So this is not only my rainbow baby, but my miracle baby. So even that she had to come out C-section. So anyways, I'll show her to you, and then I'll be off. I gotta go get my other daughter. She is awoken from her nap. This is, oh yeah, I haven't told you her name. This is Constance Joy. And so yeah, got 2 little girls in our family now. We'll see if the next one's a boy. So anyways, sorry it took so long. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye!